Hey y'all, welcome back to Simple Sanctuary Garden. My name is Sarah. It is April 13th and today is my first garden tour of the 2024 gardening season. So I'm gardening in Zone 9A in North Central Florida, and I'm starting my garden tours this year in mid-April to show what an intense sprint summer gardening in North Central Florida actually is. It gets so hot here so quickly that what most people think of as a summer garden cannot survive our actual summer. So this is our first bed, and as you can see, it's mostly empty. It's really just our fig tree and 2 tomatillos in the front corners. So one of the things that's very different with Florida gardening is how we deal with sun. Sun here is often the enemy instead of a welcomed friend like it can be in cooler gardening zones. So it's mid to late morning here. This bed is currently in the shade, which really isn't ideal. You would prefer morning sun to afternoon sun. It's a bit gentler. This bed does get kind of blasted in the afternoons, so the tomatillos will get some sun, but as the season progresses and things get hotter, that's a bed I'm really gonna have to keep a close eye on. Because it is also fairly shady in the mornings, I'm not really sure what I want to fill that in with. And as the fig gets bigger, it's going to produce more and more shade there. So I'm probably gonna put some perennial herbs starting this year around that base, or self-seeding herbs, and just let that base of the 2-tiered bed become an herb garden. And now for the segment of my summer garden that all gardeners are very interested in, the tomatoes. This year, the bulk of my tomato plants are starts. That means I bought them already started from somebody else, or they were given to me. Honestly, most of mine have been given to me by family members, and they're still fairly small. This is what they're looking like. We're still having some cool nights, and so that's slowing down their growth a little bit, but everyone's really pretty healthy. We've even got some fruits already started. Oh, this is pretty cool. So this specific plant is a determinate variety that was developed in Hawaii, so it's really good with high heat and high humidity. And this tomato, I don't know if the camera is catching it, but the tomato is fuzzy. It kind of reminds me of like a peach, and again, I don't know if the camera caught it. If you look at it, the sun is catching the little hairs on the tomato. That's really cool. I don't know if that helps with the humidity or what that is, but it's kind of fuzzy like a peach. Now, tomatoes in Florida are notoriously hard to grow. If you are a newish Florida gardener and have really struggled with tomatoes, never fear. They're really hard to grow here. We have crazy high heat, we have crazy high humidity, our weather is very intense, and really tomatoes don't care for it all that much, particularly during what we would consider the standard tomato season, which is spring and summer. In a sense, I am growing these tomatoes in the off season right now. Whatever tomatoes I get before our heat really sets in is kind of a perk. Our best tomato season is in the fall because our fall is fairly warm and stretched out. That's when tomatoes are gonna do their best. So right now, yeah, I'm growing them. I can't resist it. I love tomatoes. But really, fall in Florida is the best time for tomatoes. So this is the tomato bed that I expect is going to do the best. And that is because it gets dappled sunlight in the mornings, a decent amount of afternoon light, and then late afternoon when it's super hot, this fence blocks the sun. So this white fence, even though it's a little dirty right now, will reflect light onto these plants during the morning and early afternoon, and then the sun's gonna go behind it late afternoon. These plants are gonna be able to stay cool. If you notice, they already look healthier, stronger, and bigger than that first bed that we looked at, even though they're really from the same time and same places. And I really think it's just because this bed is in a better location. Sun mapping and understanding your high light zones is very, very important in Florida. It's important everywhere for all gardening, yes, but because the sun is more of an enemy than a friend here, knowing what plants are going to be able to tolerate, not want, but tolerate high levels of our sunshine is really key information. All right, I've got some more tomatoes over here, some parsley, some fennel left over from the winter. It really didn't grow very quickly. During the winter, it's really just now started growing. It's a bronze fennel, which is why it looks a little bit darker and kind of purpley. And so this bed is our original. This is a 2-tiered bed. We call it a ziggurat bed. As you can see, it's still mostly bare. I don't have a plan of what I'm putting there. Right now, it's got this lovely, luscious guava tree on the top tier. And the only thing that I have planned is that I think this side I'm going to fill with zinnias. So that portion of the bed gets absolutely blasted with afternoon sun, which is really brutal. A lot of my summer veg just doesn't like it. So I'm gonna fill it with zinnias and let the zinnia plants act as like a heat barrier for the rest of the bed. So there's a section I skipped, and it's because I want to spend a good amount of time on it. And that is the artist formerly known as our corn cage, which is where I'm starting all of my okra starts. So we built this cage several years ago. It's just some base lumber with some bird netting around it to try and keep some pests off of plants. And this is where I am starting my okra this year. So I am working on really just a few varieties. I'm not going too crazy with my varieties. I am growing some Clemson spineless seeds that came from my dad, motherland okra, emerald okra, and some jing. Now those Clemson seeds that my dad gave me come from this plant that grew more like a hibiscus bush than you would think of as a traditional like long tall okra plant. We don't know what the seeds are gonna do, if it's gonna grow more like a traditional Clemson spineless or if it's gonna bush again like the plant that he had. I'm really hoping it's gonna bush again. He got so much okra off of that thing. So I'm growing that. He's growing seeds from that plant as well, and we're gonna see what happens. That's what the garden looks like in mid-April. Again, everything is very much at the beginning stages. There is a lot of open space. I don't have any sweet potatoes out yet. My okra has just barely sprouted. Tomatoes are still very much infantile. But what's going to be really interesting to see is how quickly things take off, what things look like in June. The garden gets absolutely wild, and from the end of June through like the end of August, it's so hot here, it's almost inhospitable, so it's a totally different environment. Florida gardening is an entirely different beast than gardening in the rest of the country. If you're new to it, be sure to follow along. I'm going to show you what I do throughout the spring and summer. A lot of people will tell you because it's so hot here, you can't really garden, and that's just not the case. And I'm going to show you what all we can do.